Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Sunday Bhagavatam class. So today we're going to begin chapter 3. So I will quickly read through the shlokas. This chapter establishes for us that Krishna is indeed the source of all incarnations. And Sutta Goswami is going to give examples of 22 incarnations of the Lord. And immediately after Sutta Goswami talks about the 22 different incarnations, he very quickly emphasizes that the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable and unending. Therefore, it is impossible to talk about all of the incarnations because even as Sutta Goswami was speaking, the Lord had incarnated somewhere and was performing his pastimes. So, in this particular chapter, we're going to get the response to what are the Leela avatars of the Lord, and you just get a sampling of the 22. And then where does religion take shelter after Lord Krishna leaves to go back to the spiritual world after winding up his pastimes in this particular universe? So Sutta Goswami says, in the beginning of creation, so before Sutta Goswami speaks about the Leela avatars, he's going to go back and just briefly talk again about the Purusha avatars. We said that the Purusha avatars are 3 in number: Karanodakashayi Vishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. So he will just quickly summarize this and then he will talk about the Leela avatars. Sutta Goswami said, in the beginning of the creation, the Lord first expanded himself in the universal form of the Purusha incarnation and manifested all the ingredients for the material creation. And thus, at first, there was the creation of the 16 principles of material action. This was for the purpose of creating the material universes. A part of the Purusha lies down within the water of the universe. From the navel lake of his body sprouts a lotus stem, and from the lotus flower atop the stem, Brahma, the master of all engineers in the universe, becomes manifest. It is believed that all the universal planetary systems are situated on the extensive body of the Purusha, but he has nothing to do with the created material ingredients. His body is eternally in spiritual existence par excellence. The devotees, with their perfect eyes, see the transcendental form of the Purusha, who has thousands of legs, thighs, arms, and faces, all extraordinary. In that body, there are thousands of heads, ears, eyes, and noses. They are decorated with thousands of helmets and glowing earrings and are adorned with garlands. This form, the second manifestation of the Purusha, is the source and indestructible seed of multifarious incarnations within the universe. From the particles and portions of this form, different living entities like demigods, men, and others are created. First of all, in the beginning of creation, there were the 4 unmarried sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, who, being situated in a vow of celibacy, underwent severe austerities for the realization of the absolute truth. The supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices accepted the incarnation of a boar, the second incarnation, and for the welfare of the earth, he lifted the earth from the nether regions of the universe. In the millennium of the rishis, the personality of Godhead accepted the third empowered incarnation in the form of Deva Rishi Narada, who is a great sage among the demigods. He collected expositions of the Vedas which deal with devotional service and which inspire non-fruitive action. In the fourth incarnation, the Lord became Nara and Narayana, twin sons of the wife of King Dharma. Thus, he undertook severe and exemplary penances to control the senses. The fifth incarnation, named Lord Kapila, is foremost among perfected beings. He gave an exposition of the creative elements and metaphysics to Asuri Brahmana, for in course of time this knowledge had been lost. The sixth incarnation of the Purusha was the son of the sage Atri. He was born from the womb of Anasuya, who prayed for an incarnation. He spoke on the subject of transcendence to Alarka, Prahalad, and others, Yadu, Haihaya, etc. The seventh incarnation was Yajna, the son of Prajapati Ruchi and his wife Akuti. He controlled the period during the change of the Swayambhuva Manu and was assisted by the demigods such as his son Yama. The eighth incarnation was King Rishabha, son of King Nabhi and his wife Meru Devi. In this incarnation, the Lord showed the path of perfection, which is followed by those who have fully controlled their senses and who are honored by all orders of life. O Brahmanas, in the ninth incarnation, the Lord, prayed for by sages, accepted the body of a king, Prithu, who cultivated the land to yield various produce, and for that reason the earth was beautiful and attractive. When there was a complete inundation after the period of the Chakshusha Manu, and the whole world was deep within water, the Lord accepted the form of a fish and protected Vaivasvatamanu, keeping him on a boat. The 11th incarnation of the Lord took the form of a tortoise, whose shell served as a pivot for the Mandarachala hill, which was being used as a churning rod by the theists and atheists of the universe. In the 12th incarnation, the Lord appeared as Dhanavantari, and in the 13th, he allured the atheists by the charming beauty of a woman and gave nectar to the demigods to drink. In the 14th incarnation, the Lord appeared as Narsimha and bifurcated the strong body of the atheist Hiranyakashipu with his nails, just as a carpenter pierces cane. In the 15th incarnation, the Lord assumed the form of a dwarf Brahmana, Vamana, and visited the arena of sacrifice arranged by Maharaja Bali. Although at heart he was willing to regain the kingdom of the three planetary systems, he simply asked for a donation of 3 steps of land. In the 16th incarnation of the Godhead, the Lord, as Bhrigupati, annihilated the administrative class Kshatriyas 21 times, being angry with them because of their rebellion against the Brahmanas, the intelligent class. Thereafter, in the 17th incarnation of Godhead, Sri Vyasadeva appeared in the womb of Satyavati through Parashara Muni, and he divided the one Veda into several branches and sub-branches, seeing that the people in general were less intelligent. In the 18th incarnation, the Lord appeared as King Rama. In order to perform some pleasing work for the demigods, he exhibited superhuman powers by controlling the Indian Ocean and then killing the atheist King Ravana, who was on the other side of the sea. In the 19th and 20th incarnations, the Lord invented himself as Lord Balarama and Lord Krishna in the family of Vrishni, the Yadu dynasty, and by doing so, he removed the burden of the world. Then, in the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those who are envious of the faithful theist. Thereafter, at the conjunction of 2 yugas, the Lord of the creation will take his birth as the Kalki incarnation and become the son of Vishnu Yasha. At this time, almost all the rulers of the earth will have degenerated into plunderers. O Brahmanas, the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from the inexhaustible sources of water. All the rishis, manus, demigods, and descendants of Manu, who are especially powerful, are plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. This also includes the Prajapatis. All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. Whoever carefully recites the mysterious appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and in the evening gets relief from all miseries of life. The conception of the Virat universal form of the Lord as appearing in the material world is imaginary. It is to enable the less intelligent and neophytes to adjust to the idea of the Lord's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. Clouds and dust are carried by the air, but less intelligent persons say that the sky is cloudy and the air is dirty. Similarly, they also implant material bodily conceptions on the spirit self. Beyond this gross conception of form is another subtle conception of form, which is without formal shape and is unseen, unheard, and unmanifest. The living being has his form beyond the subtlety, otherwise, he could not have repeated births. Whenever a person experiences by self realization that both the gross and the subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. If the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory. Thus, learned men describe the births and activities of the unborn and inactive, which is undiscoverable even in the Vedic literatures. He is the Lord of the heart. The Lord, whose activities are always spotless, is the master of the six senses and is fully omnipotent with six opulences. He creates the manifested universes, maintains them, and annihilates them without being in the least affected. He is within every living being and is always independent. The foolish, with a poor fund of knowledge, cannot know the transcendental nature of the forms, names, and activities of the Lord, who is playing like an actor in a drama. Nor can they express such things, neither in their speculations nor in their words. Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence. Only by making such inquiries in this world can one be successful and perfectly cognizant, for such inquiries invoke transcendental ecstatic love unto the personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of all the universes and guarantees cent% immunity from the dreadful repetition of birth and death. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of God, and it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful all blissful and all perfect. Sri Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe. Shukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, in his turn delivered the Bhagavatam to the great emperor Parikshit, who sat surrounded by sages on the bank of the Ganges, awaiting death without taking food or drink. This Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. O learned Brahmanas, when Shukadev Goswami recited Bhagavatam there, in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus by his mercy I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I have realized it. So that brings us to the very first shloka of chapter 3 of Canto 1. Suta Uvacha
Suta Uvacha
Jagrihe Paurusham Rupam
Jagrihe Paurusham Rupam
Bhagavan Mahad Adibhihi
Bhagavan Mahad Adibihi
Sambhutam Shodashakalam
Sambhutam Shodashakalam
Adau Lokasisrikshaya.
Adau Lokasisrikshaya.
Word for word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Sutaha Uvacha.
Sutaha Uvacha.
Suta said.
Suta said.
Jagrihe.
Jagrihe.
Accepted.
Accepted.
Paurusham.
Paurusham.
Plenary portion as the Purusha incarnation.
Plenary portion as a Purusha incarnation.
Rupam.
Rupam.
Form.
Form.
Bhagavan.
Bhagavan.
The personality of Godhead.
The personality of Godhead.
Mahat Adibhihi.
Mahat Adibihi.
With the ingredients of the material world.
With the ingredients of the material world.
Sambhutam.
Sambhutam.
Thus there was the creation of.
Thus there was the creation of.
Shodashakalam.
Shodashakalam.
16 primary principles.
16 primary principles.
Adau.
Adau.
In the beginning.
In the beginning.
Loka.
Loka.
The universes.
The universes.
Sisrikshaya.
Sisrikshaya.
On the intention of creating.
On the intention of creating.
Translation. Suta said.
Suta said.
In the beginning of the creation.
In the beginning of the creation.
The Lord first expanded himself.
The Lord first expanded himself.
In the universal form.
In the universal form.
Of the Purusha incarnation.
Of the Purusha incarnation.
And manifested all the ingredients.
And manifested all the ingredients.
For the material creation.
For the material creation.
And thus at first.
And thus at first.
There was the creation.
There was a creation.
Of the 16 principles of material action.
Of the 16 principles of material action.
This was for the purpose.
This was for the purpose.
Of creating the material universes.
Of creating the material universes.
So let's read Prabhupada's purport and then we can discuss in case we need to clarify anything. Purport. The Bhagavad Gita states that the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna maintains these material universes by extending his plenary expansions. So, this Purusha form is the confirmation of the same principle. The original personality of Godhead, Vasudeva or Lord Krishna, who is famous as the son of King Vasudeva or King Nanda, is full with all opulences, all potencies, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. A part of his opulence is manifested as impersonal Brahman, and a part of his opulence is manifested as Paramatma. This Purusha feature of the same personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the original Paramatma manifestation of the Lord. There are three Purusha features in the material creation, and this form, who is known as Karanodakashayi Vishnu, is the first of the three. The others are known as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, which we shall know one after another. The innumerable universes are generated from the skin holes of this Karanodakashayi Vishnu, and in each one of the universes, the Lord enters as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So Prabhupada is explaining the sequence of creation, but even before creation has to happen, the Lord himself has to expand as the Purusha avatars in order for creation to take place. And the first Purusha avatar is Karanodakashayi Vishnu. From the pores of Karanodakashayi Vishnu, many universes emanate. So you could imagine that if you were to sweat and the sweat has to bubble up and dissipate into the air, you could imagine that's how universes were emanating from the skin pores of Karanodakashayi Vishnu. The Brahmandas were emanating. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also mentioned that the material world is created at certain intervals and then again destroyed. This creation and destruction is done by the supreme will because of the conditioned souls or the Nitya Baddha living entities. The Nitya Baddha or the eternally conditioned souls have the sense of individuality or ahankara, which dictates to them sense enjoyment, which they are unable to have constitutionally. The Lord is the only enjoyer, and all others are enjoyed. The living beings are predominated enjoyers, but the eternally conditioned souls, forgetful of this constitutional position, have strong aspirations to enjoy. So, if the Jivatmas want to enjoy themselves, then they have to do it separately from the Lord. Therefore, for the sole purposes of the Jivatma wanting to enjoy themselves, the Lord has to create this cosmos. Otherwise, all of us would be liberated and in the spiritual world. But there are some Jivatmas, as Prabhupada is described in this particular purport, who are Nitya Baddhas. For whatever reason, we are eternally conditioned, which doesn't mean you don't have an opportunity to go back to the spiritual world, but you should have received the causeless mercy of both the pure devotees of the Lord as well as the Lord himself, to get that opportunity to go back to your original home. The living beings are predominated enjoyers. Actually, the Lord is the only enjoyer. When the Jivatma ensures that the Lord is the first enjoyer, then that brings the Jivatma that bliss. So the Jivatma need not strive to enjoy separately from the Lord, because they get the transcendental bliss simply by serving the Lord. When the Lord is satisfied, the Jivatmas are in bliss. But the eternally conditioned souls, forgetful of this constitutional position, have strong aspirations to enjoy. The chance to enjoy matter is given to the conditioned souls in the material world, and side by side, they are given the chance to understand their real constitutional position. So, what Prabhupada is writing here is that even though, for whatever reason, we want to enjoy ourselves by disconnecting ourselves from the Lord, nevertheless, the Lord is always present with us and gives us multiple opportunities for us to turn towards Him so that we can begin the journey of going back home, back to Godhead. So, in spite of the fact that we don't want the Lord in our lives, the Lord is still present out of His causeless mercy. The chance to enjoy matter is given to the conditioned souls in the material world, and side by side, they are given the chance to understand their real constitutional position. That is why our culture, what we practice, is called Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana means eternal, Dharma means our eternal constitutional duty is to serve the Lord. That duty of ours never changes, no matter how much we may conceal ourselves with all kinds of makeup under the guise of different ID cards that we hold. That dharma where the Jivatma is meant to serve the Paramatma can never be changed. But the Jivatma may do all kinds of shenanigans to hide themselves from this Sanatana Dharma. Those fortunate living entities who catch the truth and surrender unto the lotus feet of Vasudeva after many, many births in the material world, join the eternally liberated souls, and thus are allowed to enter into the kingdom of Godhead, which means every Nitya Baddha is given an opportunity to become a Nitya Siddha and join the rest of the Nitya Siddhas who are there in the kingdom of God. But then it takes many births for us to have this kind of benediction. After this, such fortunate living entities need not come again within the occasional material creation. But those who cannot catch the constitutional truth are again merged into the Mahat Tattva at the time of the annihilation of the material creation. Mahat Tattva is the raw material energy that is created by Karanodakshaya Vishnu. It is nature in its raw form. When the creation is again set up, this Mahat Tattva is again let loose. This Mahat Tattva contains all the ingredients of the material manifestations, including the conditioned souls. So the 16 that is mentioned in this verse includes the conditioned souls because they then have to occupy certain types of physical bodies. Primarily, this Mahat Tattva is divided into 16 parts, namely the 5 gross material elements and the 11 working instruments or senses. It is like the cloud in the clear sky. In the spiritual sky, the effulgence of Brahman is spread all around, and the whole system is dazzling in spiritual light. The Mahat Tattva is assembled in some corner of the vast, unlimited spiritual sky, and the part which is thus covered by the Mahat Tattva is called the material sky. Within the spiritual sky, there is a small portion where these Nitya Baddhas have to be sent for them to enjoy themselves. This part of the spiritual sky, called the Mahat Tattva, is only an insignificant portion of the whole spiritual sky. And within this Mahat Tattva, there are innumerable universes. Within that small segment of the spiritual sky, there is like a little jail cell. Within that jail cell, there are trillions of Brahmandas. Within each Brahmanda, there are trillions of Jivas. All these universes are collectively produced by the Karanodakshaya Vishnu, called also the Mahavishnu, who simply throws his glance to impregnate the material sky. So the Purusha impregnates Prakriti and Prakriti delivers. And we see this playing out even in material nature. the Purusha impregnates Prakriti and Prakriti delivers. Which brings us to Shloka number 2. Yasyambhasi shayanasya
Yasyambhasi shayanasya
yoga nidram vitanvataha
yoganidran vitanvataha
nabhihridambujadasid
nabhihridam bujadasid
brahma vishvashvijam patihi.
brahma vishwa srijam patihi.
Yasya,
Yasya,
whose,
whose,
ambhasi,
ambhasi,
in the water,
in the water,
shayanasya,
chayanasya,
lying down, yoga nidram,
yoganidram,
sleeping in meditation,
sleeping in meditation,
vitanvataha,
vitanvataha,
ministering,
ministering,
nabhi,
nabhi,
navel,
navel,
krida,
krida,
out of the lake,
out of the lake,
ambujat,
ambujat,
from the lotus,
from the lotus,
asit,
asit,
was manifested,
was manifested,
Brahma,
Brahma,
the grandfather of the living beings,
the grandfather of the living beings,
Vishva,
Vishwa,
the universe,
the universe,
Srijam,
Sujam,
the engineers,
the engineers,
Patihi,
Patihi,
master.
master.
Translation. A part of the Purusha
A part of the Purusha
lies down within the water of the universe.
Lies down within the water of the universe.
From the navel lake of his body,
from the navel lake of his body,
sprouts a lotus stem,
sprouts a lotus stem,
and from the lotus flower,
and from the lotus flower,
atop the stem, Brahma,
Brahma,
the master of all engineers in the universe,
the master of all engineers in the universe,
becomes manifest. So in the previous shloka, Sutta Goswami spoke about Karanodakshaya Vishnu or Mahavishnu. After all of the cosmos is created, then this Mahavishnu expands himself and has to enter each universe. But before Brahma can come, this Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, his own sweat becomes the water atop which he lies, and then from his navel comes the lotus flower, and atop the lotus flower manifests Brahma. Keep in mind, here Vishnu doesn't need the help of Lakshmi to produce Brahma. He does it on his own. So Prabhupada writes, the first Purusha is the Karanodakashayi Vishnu. From his skin holes, innumerable universes have sprung up. In each and every universe, the Purusha enters as the Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. He is lying within the half of the universe, which is full with the water of his body. And from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu has sprung the stem of the lotus flower, the birthplace of Brahma, who is the father of all living beings and the master of all the demigod engineers, engaged in the perfect design and working of the universal order. Within the stem of the lotus, there are 14 divisions of planetary systems, and the earthly planets are situated in the middle. Upwards, there are other better planetary systems, and the topmost system is called Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. Downwards from the earthly planetary system, there are 7 lower planetary systems inhabited by the asuras and similar other materialistic living beings. From Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, there is the expansion of the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who is the collective Paramatma of all living beings. He is called Hari. And from him, all incarnations within the universe are expanded. Therefore, the conclusion is that the Purusha Avatara is manifested in three features. First, the Karanodakashayi, who creates aggregate material ingredients in the Mahattattva. Second, the Garbhodakashayi, who enters in each and every universe. And third, the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who is the Paramatma of every material object, organic or inorganic. One who knows these plenary features of the personality of Godhead knows Godhead properly, and thus the knower becomes freed from the material conditions of birth, death, old age, and disease, as it is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. In the Shloka, the subject matter of Mahavishnu is summarized. The Mahavishnu lies down in some part of the spiritual sky by his own free will. Thus he lies on the ocean of Karana, from where he glances over his material nature, and the Mahat Tattva is at once created. Thus, electrified by the power of the Lord, the material nature at once creates innumerable universes, just as in due course a tree decorates itself with innumerable grown fruits. The seed of the tree is sown by the cultivator, and the tree or creeper in due course becomes manifested with so many fruits. Nothing can take place without a cause. The Karana ocean is therefore called the causal ocean. Karana means causal. Causal means the cause of. We should not foolishly accept the atheistic theory of creation, which means that talks about creation happened with a big bang. That big bang has a karana, Prabhupada is explaining. The description of the atheist is given in the Bhagavad Gita. The atheist does not believe in the creator, but he cannot give a good theory to explain the creation. Material nature has no power to create without the power of the Purusha. Just as a Prakriti or woman cannot produce a child without the connection of a Purusha or man. The Purusha impregnates and the Prakriti delivers. We should not expect milk from the fleshy bags on the neck of a goat, although they look like breastly nipples. Similarly, we should not expect any creative power from the material ingredients. We must believe in the power of the Purusha, who impregnates Prakriti or nature. Because the Lord wished to lie down in meditation, the material energy created innumerable universes at once. In each of them, the Lord lay down, and thus all the planets and the different paraphernalia were created at once by the will of the Lord. The Lord has unlimited potencies, and thus he can act as he likes by perfect planning, although personally he has nothing to do. No one is greater than or equal to him. That is the verdict of the Vedas. So, in these two shlokas, the three Vishnus are described and how it is Mahavishnu, through his glance alone, starts the process of creation. Which brings us to shloka number 3. Yasyavayava samsthanaihi
Yasyavayava samsthanaihi
kalpito lokavistarah
kalpito lokavistaraha
tadvai bhagavato rupam
tadvai bhagavato rupam
vishuddham sattvamurjitam
vishuddham sattvamurjitam
yasya,
yasya
whose, avayava, bodily expansion,
bodily expansion
samsthanaihi,
samsthanaihi
situated in,
situated in,
kalpitaha,
kalpitaha,
is imagined,
is imagined,
loka,
loka,
planets of inhabitants,
planets of inhabitants,
vistaraha,
vistaraha,
various,
various,
tatvai,
tatvai,
what that is,
what that is,
bhagavataha,
bhagavataha,
the personality of Godhead,
of the personality of Godhead,
rupam,
rupam,
form,
form,
vishuddham,
vishuddham,
purely,
purely,
sattvam,
tattvam,
existence,
existence,
urjitam,
urjitam,
excellence.
excellence.
Translation. It is believed
It is believed
that all the universal planetary systems
that all the universal planetary systems
are situated
are situated
on the extensive body of the Purusha,
on the extensive body of the Purusha,
but he has nothing to do with the created material ingredients.
but he has nothing to do with the created material ingredients.
His body is eternally
His body is eternally
in spiritual existence
in spiritual existence
par excellence.
par excellence.
So Prabhupada writes, the conception of the Virat Rupa or Vishwarupa of the Supreme Absolute Truth is especially meant for the neophyte who can hardly think of the transcendental form of the personality of Godhead. So similar to how the Vishwarupa darshan is given to Arjuna in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita. For those who need to have some conception of God, they can have this conception of God by understanding how all of these features and factors of the Lord emanate and are existing in this material cosmos. So, this Virat Rupa form is not a real form of the Lord. It's an imaginary form. So, it is as if to explain to everybody else that different aspects of the universe are in different parts of the Lord's body. But in reality, that is not how it is. But that is how one can imagine easily what the form of the Lord could be like by imagining various parts of the Lord's body being various parts of the universe. But it is very clearly explained that the 14 planetary systems in every universe are within that lotus stem. And that lotus stem is above the navel of Vishnu. To him, a form means something of this material world, and therefore an opposite conception of the absolute is necessary in the beginning to concentrate the mind on the power extension of the Lord. As stated above, the Lord extends his potency in the form of the Mahat Tattva, which includes all material ingredients. So, for example, if you had to cook something, how we will gather all the ingredients and arrange it very nicely, like that. Before the Lord had to cook this cosmos, he had to get all the materials ready, the raw materials ready. So the extension of power by the Lord and the Lord himself personally are one in one sense, but at the same time, the Mahat Tattva is different from the Lord. Just because the Lord produces the material ingredients to make this, the raw materials to make this cosmos, it doesn't mean that the raw materials and the Lord are one and the same. Therefore, the potency of the Lord and the Lord are simultaneously different and non-different. The raw materials has been created by the Lord. That means it's an energy of the Lord. But the energy of the Lord is not the Lord himself. So this is that achintya bheda abheda tattva, where the energetic and the energy are one and the same, and yet they are different. Shakti and Shaktiman are one and the same, yet they are different. Shakti cannot exist without Shaktiman. Yet Shaktiman is different from Shakti. The conception of the Virat Rupa, especially for the impersonalist, is thus non-different from the eternal form of the Lord. This eternal form of the Lord exists prior to the creation of the Mahat Tattva. And it is stressed here that the eternal form of the Lord is par excellence spiritual or transcendental to the modes of material nature. The very same transcendental form of the Lord is manifested by his internal potency, and the formation of his multifarious manifestations of incarnations is always of the same transcendental quality, without any touch of the Mahat Tattva. So we should not get confused when the Lord takes all these different incarnations, which we quickly read, the 22 of them. They are all considered to be transcendental in some way, shape, or form. That brings us to shloka number 4. पश्यन्त्यदो रूपं मदभ्रचक्षुषा
पश्यन्त्यदो रूपम् अदभ्रचक्षुषा
सहस्रपादोरुभुजनान्नाद्भुतम्
सहस्रपादरो भुजान् अद्भुतम्
सहस्रमूर्धश्रवणाक्षिनासिकम्
सहस्रमूर्धा श्रवणाक्षिनासिकम्
सहस्रमौल्यम्बरकुण्डललोलसत्
सहस्रमौल्यम्बरकुण्डलो
पश्यन्ति
पश्यन्ति
see adaha
अधः
form of the Purusha,
the form of the Purusha,
Rupam
Rupam
form,
adabhra
perfect,
perfect,
Chakshusha
chakshusha
by the eyes, Sahasrapada
sahasrapada
thousands of legs,
uru
thighs,
bhuja
anana hands and faces, adbhutam
adbhutam
wonderful, sahasra thousands of, murdha heads, shravana ears, akshi eyes, nasikam noses, sahasra thousands, mauli garlands, ambara dresses, kundala earrings, ullasat all glowing. Translation: the devotees with their perfect eyes see the transcendental form of the Purusha, who has thousands of legs, thighs, arms and faces, all extraordinary. In that body, there are thousands of heads, ears, eyes, and noses. They are decorated with thousands of helmets and glowing earrings and are adorned with garlands. So Prabhupada writes, with our present materialized senses, we cannot perceive anything of the transcendental Lord. We cannot imagine what the Lord looks like. Our present senses are to be rectified by the process of devotional service, and then the Lord himself becomes revealed to us. So in every scripture, there is talk of revelation. Revelation happens when the pure soul gets an opportunity to see the Lord. but that purity and that love is required. Then the Lord will reveal himself. So until then, the Lord is covered, we say, by Yogamaya potency. The Lord is not subject to reveal himself to you as long as we are contaminated. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed that the transcendental Lord can be perceived only by pure devotional service. So it is confirmed in the Vedas that only devotional service can lead one to the side of the Lord, and that only devotional service can reveal him. In the Brahma Samhita also it is said that the Lord is always visible to the devotees whose eyes have been anointed with the tinge of devotional service. Which eyes? Your eyes of consciousness, not your physical eyes. When your consciousness is pure, then you can see the Lord in everything and everywhere. So we have to take information of the transcendental form of the Lord from persons who have actually seen him with perfect eyes, smeared with devotional service. If we want to see the Lord, we have to accept the descriptions of the Lord of pure devotees. In the material world also, we do not always see things with our own eyes. We sometimes see through the experience of those who have actually seen or done things. So even in the material world, we don't always see. But if somebody tells us something, then we are able to visualize what it is. If that is the process for experiencing a mundane object, it is more perfectly applicable in matters transcendental. For example, you don't find the koala bear in India. But if somebody has traveled to Australia and comes back and describes to you what this koala bear looks like, then you can use your imagination to think what this koala bear looks like. Until then, you've not seen it physically with your own eyes. So, only with patience and perseverance can we realize the transcendental subject matter regarding the absolute truth and his different forms. He is formless to the neophytes, but he is in transcendental form to the expert servitor.